Hi everyone, welcome back to another reading. Today we'll be covering the next 3 chapters of Dinghai Fusheng Records. Last time we left off with a lot more politics, and we kind of left off with Shangshu storming the household of Qianjun and his brother Qian Yi, the two guys that they met, like the mysterious guy on the road. Turns out he is from this huge family. They're known for like business, but also another thing is their intelligence, like secret intelligence network. They know everything about everybody, and that's really where their money comes from. And they brought him into this treasury because he's like, this is actually where this map, where the old exorcist place used to be. But yeah, he refused the other guy, like the brother's request, and Shangshu came and stormed the castle, pissed off. And yeah, that's where we left off. So let's jump into chapter 15. In the dead of night, the carriage swayed back and forth. As it crossed through the deserted main street, Chen Xing was still thinking about Feng Qianyi and what he had said, and his thoughts were a great tangled mess. Yu Wenxin had directly caused his parents' death, but why? He had studied under the Chen family. Had Chen Xing's father not treated him well enough? Feng Qianyi's cold voice rang in his ears. You're not so unmoved by hatred, are you? Chen Xing closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He dropped his head, pinching the space between his eyebrows and rubbing circles with his thumb and forefinger. Shangshu spurred his horse along the main street. As he crossed the Hanguang Gates Avenue, the rhythmic clang of the night watch sounding the hour faded into the distance, and a gust of wind began to blow. Shangshu's head shot up, and he saw a faint blurry shadow sprung out of the trees and shrubs by the roadside and leaped over the tall wall. Frowning, he immediately urged his horse to turn. The warhorse turned around and rushed towards the carriage, which was making its way through the main street towards the Hanguang Gates. All Shangshu could see was this intruder. Was that the shadow they casted on the wall? He shot towards the carriage, shouting, "Get out of the carriage!" The coachman tried to take a closer look, but he didn't see the shadowy silhouette. He only saw Shangshu rushing him, sword in hand, fearing that the horses would collide. He tumbled off the carriage and onto the roadside. In a blink of an eye, the silhouette had reached the carriage. The figure lifted a long pitch-black saber, in both hands swinging it horizontally at the carriage and slicing it open. That slash cut through the carriage like paper, cleaving straight through the middle and instantly separating the coachman's head from his body. The upper half of the carriage went flying and landed almost 10 feet away. It looked like a person sitting inside the carriage was about to be sliced in half as well. Chen Xing had slumped over, his head buried in his knees as he gave in to his sorrow, when a sudden gust of cold wind swept around him. When had this carriage turned into a handcart? In a flash, Shangshu leaped off his horse and onto the carriage, flying past Chen Xing in the process. Chen Xing hadn't seen what had happened. As he thought that, Shangshu had suddenly lost his mind and cut the carriage in two. His soul flew out of his body. "Are you nuts?" he yelled. Whoosh! The shadowy figure dashed back towards the hall. Shangshu lunged forwards to stab at it, but the pitch-black shadow saber materialized once again to slice at him. Shangshu bent backwards to dodge, and the tip of the blade missed his face by less than an inch, leaving a lingering chill in its wake. Chen Xing hastily clambered out of the carriage. "Hurry and help!" shouted Shangshu. "Help how?" Chen Xing stood at the road, mystified. From his perspective, Shangshu was still hacking randomly at a wall. "Great Chan you are, you right? Did you accidentally kick the shaft of the carriage?" Shangshu was speechless. As soon as Chen Xing extracted himself from the carriage, the shadow broke free from its brawl with Shangshu and whooshed to the ground, speeding towards Chen Xing instead. Shangshu turned around to give chase, shouting, "Light!" This time, Chen Xing saw it. He activated the heart lamp, and a flash of bright light illuminated their surrounding. Wherever the light touched, the shadows would disappear without a trace. The heart lamp's light shone down to the corpse of the coachman lying on the roadside. Chenxing couldn't believe it. "What is this?" Chenxing took a fast step back. "I should be the one asking you that," Shangshu said, cold as ice. Then he shouted, "Behind you! It's coming again!" Chenxing turned around. Shangshu lunged forward, shielding Chenxing with his sword. "A Yao!" Chenxing exclaimed. A Yao is basically like a sort of demonic spirit. He called upon the heart lamp, and the weapon in Shangshu's hand began to glow. The shadow seemed to hesitate for a moment, but in the end, it raced back towards them. Undeterred, Shangshu, however, was faster, and he stabbed the sword into the ground, piercing the shadow. A cloud of black fog erupted from it, and it shrank back and began to revolve on spot, releasing bursts of cold, malevolent wind. Shangshu stopped Chenxing with one hand when he tried to scoot forward. Chenxing peeked out from behind him, staring at the thing in horror. What kind of Yao is that? What about the silence of all magic? Why are there Yao in Chang'an? They watched the shadow as it slowly retreated, apparently wary of Chenxing. "Aren't you an exorcist?" Shangshu demanded. "Exorcise it, duh." Chenxing lit up the heart lamp several more times to expel the shadow, but it just darted around outside the range of the heart lamp's glow, remaining out of reach. "I don't know how to," Chenxing blurted, feeling no shame at all. "I can only make myself glow. I don't know any other spells." That pissed Shangshu off tremendously. That his vision went dark for a moment. "If you don't know how to exorcise Yao, fine. Just scare it away. Why did you have to say that out loud? Now the Yao knows too." Sure enough, in the next moment, the shadow began to transform and elongate. It whipped into a whirlwind, and a figure clad from head to toe in heavy armor began to emerge from within. Distantly, they heard the sound of hooves striking the ground. The city guards on patrol had arrived. Shangshu made a snap decision. He grabbed Chenxing's wrist and yanked him backwards, and Chenxing didn't even have time to think before Shangshu sent him flying through the air. With two swift steps, Shangshu leaped onto the wall at the side of the road, collided with Chenxing and grabbed him. A monstrous warrior clad in pitch-black armor dashed out from within the whirlwind, lunging through the air to give chase. Just before its sword could stab Shangshu directly in the back, Chenxing, scrambling in the chaos, raised his hand. With his left arm wrapped around Shangshu's waist and his right hand peeking out from the other side of his torso, he shot forth a flash of light from his palm. The black-armored warrior let out an angry bellow and fell off the wall, and Shangshu transitioned from snatching Chenxing out of the air to hugging him firmly around the waist. Kicking off the high wall, he vaulted over another wall that was enclosed by the government official's residence, Chenxing in tow. With another leap, he landed on the point of the residence's roof. He and Chenxing turned sideways and went sliding down along the tiles. They crossed over another wall and jumped back onto the rooftop, traversing two residences in a heartbeat. It was only then that Chenxing realized Shangshu was running away. "We're going to run away just like that?" he protested. Shangshu was furious. What else should we be doing? Half-hugging Chenxing like this, Shangshu was very close, and he had a very strong lung. Bellow almost made Chenxing go deaf. Chenxing tried to placate him. "That's not what I meant. That monster." Seeing Shangshu's dark expression, he trailed off. In such a short span of time, they had left the main street behind. They weren't far from the palace now. The high walls, nearly 20 feet tall, were no more than level ground to Shangshu. They found themselves in the garden less than half an hour later. When they finally landed, Chenxing's head was spinning so much that he struggled to keep upright. Before he could look back to see if the shadow was still chasing them, Shangshu grabbed Chenxing by the arm and dragged him imperiously back to the sleeping chamber. 6 eunuchs were waiting in the hall to serve him. Light all the lamps, Shangshu ordered. In the middle of the night, the sleeping chamber was blazed with light. Shangshu waved his hand again, motioning for them all to leave. Chenxing's nerves hadn't settled yet. He sat down at the table looking to drink some tea. That monster is a shad. Before he could start speaking, Shangshu lifted Chenxing by his lapels, spilling tea all over him. Chenxing was taken aback. With a dangerous glint in his eyes, Shangshu lifted Chenxing from his seat and pressed him against a pillar. Chenxing struggled to free himself, his face flushing red from exertion. What are you doing in that place where those Han gathers? Shangshu snarled, and here I was actually believing your nonsense. Chenxing continued to struggle, panicking. He clutched at Shangshu's wrist with both hands, but Shangshu's arms were so solid that they could have been cast from iron. They didn't budge an inch. Shangshu's angry breaths fanned over Chenxing's face, and his entire body was emanating a murderous and maniacal intent. Chenxing dangled in midair, his eyes leveled with Shangshu's, and finding malevolent, shifty kick move of kneeing Shangshu in the crotch. Not only did this move cause unspeakable harm to one's opponent, it could also easily enrage the opponent further. Unfortunately, Chenxing had once again misjudged Shangshu's strength. With nothing more than a gentle flick of his fingers, Shangshu hit the yang Lin Chuan acupoint below Chenxing's knees, instantly making half of his body go tingly and numb. Chenxing spent a long time gasping for breath before he managed to recover. He stared at Shangshu. I am a Han, he said, finally losing his temper. And what business is it of yours where I go? The group is plotting a rebellion. You were courting death. Chenxing felt an icy chill come over him. How did Shangshu know all of that? As he spoke, Shangshu drew his sword lightning fast. Chenxing was sitting on the floor, and he quickly shuffled backwards, but it was too late. The point of Shangshu's sword rested in the hollow of his throat. Okay, there's an image on page 215 if you have the physical book. Check it out, or the ebook. Oh my goodness, it is spicy. They look spicy, but they're actually like in an argument right now. I'm sure like there's going to be rumors spreading the next day if somebody sees this. Like just from the shadows outline, it looks very suggestive. You're not an exorcist. Shangshu was looking down at him. His voice was ice. You were lying. Now tell me the truth. If you lie to me one more time, that will be the end of your miserable life. Chenxing couldn't stop gasping for air, and on every inhale, he felt freezing the tip of the blade against his throat. He looked up at Shangshu, overcome by the miasma of emotions. Everything that had happened, the whole string of complicated events, flashed through his mind. If you don't believe me, then just do it, Chenxing said stubbornly, swallowing his grief. Go on, kill me. Recalling what Feng Qianyi had said to him about his parents' deaths, and Yuan Shin's betrayal, Chenxing couldn't hold it any longer. Tears streamed uncontrollably down his cheeks. Shangshu didn't know what to say. He hadn't expected Chenxing to cry. He lifted his sword away a little and studied Chenxing baffled. I do want to rebel, Chenxing shouted. I want to avenge my parents. You're right. Everything I told you was a lie. Shut up, Shangshu yelled, concerned that Chenxing's voice would attract curious listeners. The walls had ears in the palace, and plotting rebellion was a massive taboo, even for the great Chanyu. Chenxing calmed himself from the brief emotional outburst. His gaze when he met Shangshu's eyes was unperturbed. Finally, he accepted what Chenxing had told him, but when he thought it through, new questions emerged. Well, who sent you here? Aren't you afraid that the whole family will be executed? Why would I be afraid of my family being executed? My entire family's dead. Shangshu was too stunned when he heard this. He sheathed his sword and took a step forward, looking at Chenxing with a gaze that suddenly bore a hint of sympathy. He reached out, wanting to pull Chenxing up, But as soon as he moved, Chenxing backed away, afraid that Shangshu would hit him again. They looked at each other for a moment. Chenxing didn't say anything. He was just warily ducked away, slowly crawled into his bed and laid down, with his back to Shangshu. With a stony expression, Shangshu changed on his own and sat down by the main bed. From time to time, he glanced over at Chenxing. "Will the assassin come back?" Chenxing asked, still facing the wall. "That's a question for you. Is the coachman dead? What do you think?" Shangshu grouched. Chenxing fell silent. Why was it that on their way back to the palace, they had encountered such an attack? Who? No. Or what was that assassin? And the black iron helmet. Chenxing was sure he had seen it somewhere before. Then there was the fact that Shangshu knew about the Feng family's secret rebellion plot. Chenxing's head hurt so bad he couldn't stand it. "What should we do if the lights go out later?" he asked muzzily. "This is my territory," he said. "If he dares to chase us all the way here, I'll kill it." Chenxing was so tired that he didn't even know when he fell asleep. He dreamed that a great Yao lived in Shangshu's body. From out of the main street, which was blanketed in darkness, Shangshu stepped bravely forward and picked Chenxing up. But as they were leaping across the roofs and walking across the walls, the huge Yao within Shangshu's body emerged and snared the two of them with its innumerable pitch-black tentacles. Chenxing struggled, but the tentacles wrapped around his throat. When his eyes shot open, he found that the rest of the night has passed uneventfully. The sun had long since risen, and the hall beyond the screen was filled with seated young men around ages 16 or 17. Shangshu, dressed in his sleeping clothes, stood before the mirror, as a eunuch helped him into a Hu outfit. He turned around and stepped past the screen. All the young men addressed him meekly. "Great Chanyu, Great Chanyu, Great Chanyu." Chenxing got up, still bleary-eyed. He put on his clothes and stared stonily at Shangshu, who was eating breakfast in the hall surrounded by beautiful young men. Even Yuan Shin was there too, sitting quite far back in the hall, staring enviously at the young Xianbei man that was pouring Shangshu a cup of tea. Shangshu glanced at Chenxing, but Chenxing turned away, ignoring him. That turn of the head, however, made him conscious of the fact that everyone was looking at him. There was a note on the table with Chenxing's name written on it. Chenxing opened it to take a look. The handwriting inside was both beautiful and powerful. Fu Jian's writing. The emperor himself was in the mood to invite Chenxing for a chat at Taixing Palace that morning. "Does this great Chanyu wish to take a stroll through Chang'an City today?" the young man asked. Shangshu didn't say anything. He finished his breakfast and started drinking his tea. Another man suggested, "Or we could go hunting on the grounds?" Yes, yes, everyone agreed at once. "I heard that the great Chanyu is unrivaled in archery, horseback riding," said Yuan Shin. "It would be a great pleasure to catch a glimpse of those legendary skills." Shangshu seemed to be considering this suggestion, and the young man had taken initiative to serve him moved a little closer. "Great Chanyu," Chenxing said, "His Majesty had summoned me, and I need to take a trip to the palace later." Shangshu didn't push the young man aside after all. The young man who had interrupted them mid-sentence glared daggers at Chenxing. From the young man's expression alone, Chenxing could imagine what they were thinking. Who is this guy? Why is he staying with the great Chanyu in his room? Did they spend the night together? The corners of his mouth twitched. "I have no intention of snatching away your great Chanyu. If you like a rabid dog, then by all means, carry on liking him. It's none of my business." He stuffed the letter in his pocket, and without waiting for Shangshu's response, he left. On his way out, he glanced at Yuan Shin, feeling conflicted. Yuan Shin didn't notice at all. He was too focused on plastering on a warm, genial smile for Shangshu's sake. Chenxing quashed the urge to stop in front of Yuan Shin and punch him in the face. If he did something like that now, he would have to suffer the consequences for it later. and he wouldn't be able to protect him either. And he hadn't thoroughly investigated the matter anyways. What if it was all a lie that Feng Qianyi had fabricated to lure him into joining the rebellion? His parents had already been dead for so long, and there would always be a chance to uncover that truth. It didn't need to happen right away. But what if Feng Qianyi was telling the truth? They were gone. What's the purpose that vengeance would serve? Even killing Yuan Shin wouldn't bring his parents back to life. Chen Xing sighed, his mind weighed down with his thoughts as his feet brought him to the imperial gardens. The human world was too complex. His Shufu had once said that desires of the human heart could be eviler than a Yao's, and Chen Xing was beginning to see the truth behind that statement. Taixing Palace, which housed Fu Jian's imperial study, was situated within the imperial gardens. Spring had arrived, the grass had grown tall, and orioles flitted about, clusters around a small, elegant building. Chen Xing's surrounding was vast and expansive, like the play of light and shadows across a screen. When Chen Xing arrived outside the imperial study, he found Toba Yan himself standing guard for Fu Jian. "I'll look for you after my shift is over," Toba Yan whispered. Chen Xing was about to exchange some pleasantries with him, but Toba Yan gestured for him to head in. When he stepped inside, Chen Xing found himself in a room linked on the three sides by the towering bookshelves. Bamboo strip rolls, books, and scrolls were everywhere, each classified according to type and subject matter, and they were cataloged with the stems and branches system. Fu Jian sat imposing on the couch in the middle of the room. Behind him hung two banners, one to his right and one to his left. One was embroidered with a white tiger, while the other was embroidered with a zhou yu. So this is a mystical beast that kind of looks like a tiger. Hold on. Are those magical artifacts from the Jin dynasty? Chen Xing narrowed his eyes, thinking back. The ancient texts he read did have records of a white tiger banner and a Zhouyu banner. The magical artifacts were in Fu Jian's hands. It was a pity that after the silence of all magic, the two banners were no longer of any use. Regardless, Chen Xing needed to find a chance to get them away from Fu Jian, who knew what matter would happen in the future. Fu Jian was speaking to an elegant, leaned scholar at his side. He sat before a neat row of 24 low tables, where princes and ministers might sit to discuss politics or to answer the emperor's inquiries. "You've come just at the right time," Fu Jian said, noticing Chen Xing, and beckoned him to sit. "Come here. Let Zhu Ye take care of you." Chen Xing approached and was about to kowtow when Fu Jian stopped him. "No need to kowtow. Scholars have always been exempted from kowtowing to us." Although Fu Jian was trying to be amicable, he still conveyed an unquestionable air of authority. This behavior stood in stark contrast to the way he'd spoken to Shang Shu on the other night. Chen Xing could tell while Fu Jian was doing his best to feign familiarity. With scholars, the familiarity he showed Shang Shu was the real deal. The scholar Zhu Ye smiled at him. "Whatever the emperor says goes. Since he said you do not need to kowtow, you may feel free to be imprudent." Chen Xing chuckled at that. "This is Wang Zhuye, our palace assistant secretary," Fu Jian said. A palace assistant secretary, while only a proper third-class rank, was an official who was in charge of inspecting all of the other officials and examining all the petitions to the throne regarding state affairs. That meant Wang Zhuye reported directly to Fu Jian, which was equivalent to being Fu Jian's personal secretary. Any recommendations for personnel or anything regarding the imperial examinations required final approval from the officials who worked for Wang Zhuye. So he held a great deal of power. Chen Xing addressed him as Lord Wang, and Wang Zhuye smiled in response. He studied Chen Xing and asked about his family, as if trying to ascertain whether Chen Xing's identity was a fabrication. I didn't expect Chen Shangsheng to have still a living descendant, he said. This is great. This is really great. Chen Sheng politely answered each of his questions, but he was unable to shake off the feeling that there was something a little strange about Wang Zhiye. This was the first time since Chen Sheng had left the mountains that he felt so restless in front of a stranger. Wang Zhiye's eyes seemed to see through everything. Don't tell me. Fujian wants me to become an official after a single meeting. Chen Sheng thought. And how is that everyone is so well informed around here? Aside from Shangshu, Yuan Xin should have been the only one to know about Chen Sheng's background. He hadn't expected the information to spread like wildfire in Wei Ying Palace. Within a day, the Feng family had managed to catch wind of it, and now even Fu Jian was aware. He had to assume that there were lots more people discussing it behind his back as well. And that is the end of chapter 15. Chapter 16. While Chen Sheng contemplated how to politely decline Wang Zhiye from talking, the calamity that befell the Chen family was truly undeserved. Back then, the war in Jinyang caused immense suffering, and it claimed far too many lives. Fu Jian sighed. It was our fault, he said to Chen Sheng. Chen Sheng understood then. Fu Jian intended to apologize to him. But what was the point of an apology when his parents and family were gone? He thought about it for a moment, then said, The dead can't come back to life. I've been studying in seclusion over the years, and I've long since moved past it. Fu Jian nodded for a moment, then the study was silent. Finally, Wang Zhiye stood to take his leave. I'll go review the list of names for the spring selection, Wang Zhiye said. 48 Confucian scholars from across the country has been recommended for the imperial exams. Fu Jian got up. I won't see you out then. I can take this opportunity to reminisce about the old times with this young friend here. Gaining the emperor's favor was the ultimate wish of all civil and martial officials, but Chen Sheng didn't feel particularly flattered. He hadn't come to Chang'an to seek a position for himself, and he was afraid of offending Fu Jian. Furthermore, the boundary between Hu and Han people were meant to be never truly become close. When Wang Zhiye turned away, Fu Jian gave Chen Sheng a meaningful glance. Chen Sheng took the initiative to ask, Why is His Majesty looking for me? The events of the previous night still weighed heavily on him. He needed to take time to rethink everything. His lead on the exorcism department's headquarters had been cut off, and he had parted with the Feng brothers on bad terms. And who was that assassin who pursued him afterward? Had the Yao been sent by the Feng family to silence him, or by the same secret puppeteers behind the drought fiends? First and foremost, I want to thank you for saving our great Chan Yu, Fu Jian said, sounding earnest. Chen Sheng quickly demurred, insisting he didn't deserve the praise and had merely acted in passing. Fu Jian then asked Chen Sheng why he traveled all the way to Shanyang City, but after the events of the previous night with the enemies lurking in the shadows, Chen Sheng had a sense that he had been exposed. He had to tread carefully, and even more so now that Yuan Xin had disclosed Chen Sheng's identity, both within and without the palace. He tried to explain to Fu Jian. He had been passing through to Shanyang when he unexpectedly was trapped and found himself unable to leave. Fu Jian wasn't the sort of person who would insist on probing too deeply, and judging by his expression, he readily believed what Chen Sheng told him. Fu Jian asked Chen Sheng things about reading habits and whether he write essays. I studied medicine for a few years, but I'm afraid to admit that I can only treat people. I haven't focused much on governance or writing essays. Fu Jian gave him a meaningful smile. A few days ago, I couldn't resist the urge to spar with the great Chan Yu, but I'm getting old now and my shoulders are stiff. Perhaps you could perform some acupuncture on me. Chenxing was taken aback. Without waiting for Fu Jian's orders, a palace attendant delivered some needles and stones. Chenxing considered them briefly. Then he nodded and smiled. All right. Fu Jian removed his imperial robe, revealing his muscular bare back, and laid face down on the couch in front of the table. Chenxing sat next to him, took a silver needle and heated it over a flame. Then he began to administer acupuncture. In addition to Emperor Qin, Divine King, and Lord of the North, Fu Jian held another prestigious title, #1 martial arts of the Great Qin Dynasty. Rumors had that the north of the Huai River, Fu Jian was foremost among all martial artists, and that most who faced him met their demise. Still, Chenxing harbored no doubt that Shangshu possessed the strength to defeat Fu Jian, because he noticed a small bruise near Fu Jian's heart, a clear sign of a wound from a scabbard strike. Had the strike become a blade, it would have been fatal. Fu Jian probably can't beat Shangshu, Chenxing thought. Shangshu's the greatest. Strength laid in his incredible speed. Among all of the many martial artists' skills, speed was the most important. No matter how brave or fierce Fu Jian was, he probably couldn't defend against Shangshu's lightning-fast attacks. When we first met you that night, Fu Jian said, lounging insouciantly, we knew you couldn't possibly be Shu Lukong's servant. You're a scholar. You have the demeanor of one too. You're just like them. Chenxing smiled. I'm not really like them. Your Majesty has misjudged me. His words were sincere and modest. After escaping from Jinyang, he went against the family's tradition and diverged from the path of an ordinary Confucian scholar, which included diligent study of the 4 books and 5 classics, or delving into governance as written by Dong Zhongshu and the ancient sages. Instead, Chenxing's interest lay in supernatural tales, folklore, local customs, astronomy, geography, and other subjects that tended to be categorized as miscellaneous studies, and they were typically looked down upon by traditional scholars. He viewed the 100 schools of thought as primarily useful for advising rulers, so he hadn't delved deeply into those teachings. In fact, the teachings of Confucius and Mencius were antithetical to exorcists. As the saying went, Confucius does not discuss the strange, the powerful, chaos, or spirit. Another Confucian saying even went, if one cannot manage human affairs, how can one manage those of spirits? Confucian scholars strongly opposed of the fantasy world, familiar to exorcists, and advocated for a focus on the present world. You remind us of someone, he said, his eyes closed. A Han. Chenxing held a needle and inserted it into the lower third region of the back of Fu Jian's neck. If in a moment he had stabbed the Feng Fu acupoint at the back of Fu Jian's head with the needle, pushing it in 3 inches, Fu Jian would have immediately met his end. Chenxing didn't understand why a ruler of such eminence would dare to entrust his life to another. With just one thrust of the needle, he could have fulfilled Feng Chanyi's long, burning lust for revenge. However, when Chenxing was under Sui Xing's protection, Fu Jian had the Emperor Star's guardianship. If he were to stab Fu Jian and the Emperor Star clash with the Sui Xing, the outcome would be uncertain. Did you ever meet my father? Chenxing asked. No. Fu Jian replied, his eyes still closed. We only know of his great reputation. The one we were thinking of is the name Wang Meng. He passed a few years ago. A few years ago, Wang Meng had been the chief strategist of the Fu Jian's government. He helped Fu Jian in defeating his arch-enemy, Heng Wen, and established systems where the Qin and Jin dynasties governed distinct territories and devised a plan to overthrow Fusheng, the ruthless, bloodthirsty previous emperor. When Wang Mang was alive, the Great Qin was like a swift carriage that swept away the decline and tarnished reputation of the Jin dynasty. With each war, the Great Qin's bravery increased, and it remained undefeated for over a decade, transforming Fujian into a rarely seen god of war. Consequently, the Qin dynasty became the most vibrant nation in the world. Fujian often listened to Wang Mang, to the famed strategist Zhuge Liang, and he considered him the closest confidant. Wang Mang's death at the age of 50 had come as a heavy blow. Fujian's temple turned frosty white, and it took more than half a year for him to gradually overcome the loss. Chen Xing made a sound of acknowledgement, but his mind was elsewhere. Wang Zhiye, whom you just met, Fujian said, is one of Wang Mang's distant younger cousins. Oh? Chen Xing inserted another needle. He had already placed more than 10 needles into Fujian's back. You don't resemble Jinglui at all, Fujian murmured, as if to himself, but for some reason, we started talking about him as soon as we saw you. Perhaps, Chen Xing said with a smile, as he finished his acupuncture treatment. It's because Wang Mang is my Shushang. We studied under the same Shufu. Fujian burst into hearty laughter. So that's why, he said, expressing no doubt about the veracity of Chen Xing's words. I only met Shushang twice, and we didn't speak much either time. The first occasion was in the 5th year after the state was established. Yes, that year before Jinglui helped me defeat Hong Wen. He returned to Mount Hua once. Chen Xing murmured acknowledgement. Yes. And the other time was the 6th year after the state was founded. Jinglui and I bade farewell at Bashang, launched an attack on the Xianbei Murong clan, and defeated the enemy, Fujian recalled. These were the only 2 occasions on which Chen Xing had the opportunity to meet his eldest Shushang, Wang Mang. When Wang Mang was confronted with the arrival of the Divine Land's mandates of heaven, he struggled to devise a strategy. So, he'd returned to Mount Hua to seek guidance from their Shufu. In Chen Xing's recollection, his Da Shushang had been a cheerful and generous person who treated him kindly. Chen Xing had been young then, however, he couldn't remember much, only fragments of the conversations between his Shushang and Shufu. Your Majesty, please don't move, Chen Xing said as he pressed down on Fujian's back. I still have a few needles to insert. Fujian grew pensive. Fellow disciples will see. It's a true pity that your Shufu had passed away, so you don't have a betrothal yet with our great Chan Yu. You two are well matched after all. Chen Xing fell silent. Gentler, Fujian urged. Your Majesty. Chen Xing said in a threatening voice, moving closer. I'm not familiar with him. We're not even friends. Why did everyone think he had some unspeakable relationship with Shang Shu? Chen Xing thoroughly lost his temper. Was it because Shang Shu had brought him to the palace? Now that he thought about it, though he was Shang Shu's savior, and Shang Shu had brought him all the way to Chang'an from 1,000 miles away, perhaps it was a natural that Fujian would misunderstand the relationship from the start. If you're not, then you're not. Don't be rash. Chen Xing finally inserting the last 2 needles. It's done, Your Majesty. Please don't move. Since you're Jinglui's little shudi, you must have left your Shufu and come to Chang'an to settle down, right? What do you think of Great Qin? Chen Xing efficiently packed up his things and sat down to the side. I'm just passing through. I'll have to leave soon. Fujian seemed a little surprised. Where do you want to go? Chen Xing struggled and smiled. I don't know. Fujian laid, sprawling, turning his head sideways. Do you have any arrangements with Shu Lukong? I have nothing to do with him, Your Majesty. Okay, let's not talk about it for now, Fujian said hastily, wary of Chen Xing attacking him again. He paused briefly. Chen Tianxia. What are your thoughts on Princess Qinghe's cousin, our regular mounted attendant, the young man named Toba Yan? Outside the study, Toba Yan coughed awkwardly. Chen Xing remained silent for a moment, then sincerely said, Your Majesty, as the Emperor, you have many important matters to attend to every day. Why would you idle away your time playing matchmaker for me? And with a man too? The great Chanyu and young Toba are dear brothers to us. Is there anything with us discussing marriage matters on behalf of our brothers? Chengxing quickly changed his tune. There's no problem, but even if you want to act as a matchmaker, shouldn't you look for a woman? Fu Jian laughed again. When autumn arrives this year, we will issue a new decree. All men in this world can marry each other, so they need not to be bound by constraints of propriety any longer. So I've heard. Chengxing replied with disinterest, but Fu Jian cut him off with a gesture. Don't judge Toba Yan by his unassuming demeanor. He is wise and astute. Though he appears simple-minded, as a young man, he may be careless in a minor of matters, but he has never been negligent in important ones. If you were willing to become his bride, it would be a good and beautiful match. Why not stay at the court and serve us? You, Yanner, one adept in literary arts and the other one in martial arts, in union personally approved by us, would... Chengxing hesitated. He felt a fleeting urge to slap Fu Jian while the needles had him immobilized, but he quickly dismissed it. After all, any commoner would feel lucky to have the emperor choose their marriage partner, especially if that partner was the most favored commander of the three armies, a rank 4 military officer, young, talented, and handsome. Regardless of the prestige his family once commanded, Chengxing was by the point nothing more than a commoner. And even the children of officials would shed tears of gratitude to be granted such an opportunity by Fu Jian. What reasons could anyone possibly have to refuse him? Chengxing took a deep breath and smiled. We're both men. Exactly. So why act bashful? What we need is straightforward answer in our D people's homeland. What I mean is, we are all men, so we shouldn't be using the word bride while discussing marriage. Chengxing was on the verge of flipping a table. And if someone has to be a bride, why not him? I knew he was going to say that. I knew that was the part that pissed him off the most. Not even the whole, gay marriage thing. It's more like, okay, but why do I gotta be the bride? Why do I gotta be the wife? Though Chengxing had interrupted him, Fu Shan... Whoa, there's so many little errors in this book that I realized with their names, like Fu Jian on page 233. I might have gotten a first printing of it, but let me know if you guys have digital copies and you're reading along and it's having some errors because it's saying Fu Xian instead of Fu Jian. Anyways, he showed no signs of anger. If you're willing to join our court as an official, assist us in unifying the world and show us what you're capable of. When you reach a position of rank 3 or higher, we will appoint Toba Yan as your wife. What's the issue with that? No, that's not what I meant. Chengxing protested. Then why did you ask if Yan'er, if he's willing to? No. Chengxing interrupted urgently. He had heard Toba Yan, who was guarding the study outside, clear his throat again. Wait, Your Majesty. If Toba Yan were actually to agree, then the king's words would have been taken seriously. One said. They couldn't be unsaid, and there would be no turning back. To tell you the truth, Chengxing said, it's not about who should be whose wife, Your Majesty. There's something... Toba Yan's voice interrupted from the outside. The great Chanyu has arrived. Chengxing had meant to tell Fu Jian outright, all this matchmaking and trying to hitch me to Toba Yan is pointless. I won't live past 20 anyways, and I'm very busy. However, Shangshu's arrival brought their conversation to an abrupt halt. Shangshu walked straight into the imperial study, without waiting for Fu Jian's permission. Frowning slightly, he found a place to sit. With a glance, Chengxing noticed that he was dressed in black martial robes and black boots. There is no embroidery or decorations, embellishing his attire aside from a brass knuckle forged from the black iron on his right hand. His simple outfit highlighted the fairness of his skin, giving him the appearance of a robust and upright poplar tree. radiating a command and presence that outshone everyone around him. Plenty of people want to marry the great Chanyu. Chen Xing thought. If you're bored, you should help them arrange their marriages. Marry all 16 of those young men who were in the hall this morning to Shang Shu. I'd like to see how he handles it. Shu Lukong, Fu Jian said. We heard you've arranged 16 marriages with families from Chang'an, Shanbei, Xiongnu, and the Qiang tribes. Chen Xing kept silent. You're of marriageable age now, Fu Jian added, but can you handle marrying 16 at once? Try not to indulge in too much of your youth and vitality. If you go round after round each night and contract a disease, or... He studied Shang Shu with a skeptical look. Do you have some sort of preference? Chen Xing barely restrained himself from bursting into laughter. Shang Shu, however, said in the deep voice, Cut the crap, Jiantou. You're probably the one who can't do it anymore. That's what you sent that Murong fellow so far away, right? We'll show you what we're capable of right now, Fu Jian retorted angrily. He draped a casual arm around Chen Xing's shoulders. Chen Xing was lost, not yet understanding the meaning behind these words, but he sensed a dangerous aura emanating from Shang Shu. Fu Jian laughed like it was nothing and let go of Chen Xing, then said to Shang Shu, Or do you plan to try yourself? Screw you, Shang Shu spat, suppressing his murderous intent. And a sudden silence fell in the study. After a moment, Chen Xing broke it. It's time to take the needles out, Your Majesty. Fu Jian motioned for him to go ahead and remove them. I heard, he said to Shang Shu, that a Han man died on the Tongren street last night, the northwest side of the city. A coachman who was driving a carriage. Chen Xing's heart jolted. He wouldn't have expected Fu Jian to pay attention to such trivial affairs. Then again, he supposed if an ordinary person had died violently on the streets, the government would have been already intervening. The government didn't dare to investigate anything to do with the great Chanyu, though. All they could do is report it to the palace. I killed him, said Shang Shu dispassionately. So what? Why would you kill an unarmed Han man? Fu Jian asked. That's just not like you. Chen Xing felt conflicted about this, but Shang Shu replied, Because I'm a rabid dog that kills anyone I see. Chen Xing didn't say a word. Fu Jian knew that wasn't the truth, of course. Shang Shu had only said it to shut him up. This is Chang'an, not the lands before the Great Wall, Fu Jian said, his tone growing stern. Once we pass through the gates, we must adhere to the local laws and regulations. It only took us a great deal of effort to bring 5 tribes beyond the Great Wall, to heal and persuade them not to kill the Han. Your actions have undermined the order and discipline of our court, and slighted our imperial decree. Shu Lukong, do not embarrass us this way again. It's not like that. Chen Xing wanted to explain, but when he glanced at Shang Shu, he saw him shake his head gently. Chen Xing swallowed his words. Fu Jian then turned to Chen Xing. Chen Qianchi, what do you think of Chang'an under our governance? It's governed well, Chen Xing said after a moment's pause. This was the truth. Prosperity and peace abound. Chang'an truly deserves its position as the capital. Chang'an was nothing like the Chen Xing had envisioned before he arrived. He hadn't expected the capital to become so prosperous, a place where Hu and Han coexisted peacefully. When they lived beyond the Great Wall, there were no laws and regulations, Fu Jian said. Even when the law were established, most did not abide them. It was too difficult to make them understand the price they have to pay for taking another's life. We want everyone in this world to be able to eat their fill and dress warmly. When the great Tao prevails, the world will be shared by all, the elderly cared for, the strong employed, and the young nurtured. Punishment will be tempered with mercy, and consistent rules will guide the people, Shu Lukong. Chen Xing finished removing the needles and carefully put them away. Fu Jian stretched his shoulders, already feeling like the usual self again, and nodded with satisfaction. Think carefully, he continued. This isn't like before, when we were beyond the Great Wall. Growing impatient with this conversation, Shangshu abruptly stood up and glanced at Chen Xing. Chen Xing sensed that he had something to say, so he stood up as well and took this opportunity to bid farewell to Fu Jian. You still haven't given us an answer on the matter we discussed earlier, Chen Tanxia. There aren't many who dare to use delay tactics against us. Chen Xing was surprised that he'd remembered. He glanced at Shangshu only to find that Shangshu had left, unwilling to listen to their conversation. He looked back at Fu Jian, and after a moment's hesitation said, Your Majesty, shouldn't marriage involve feelings? Even if you were planning to arrange for two people to marry, without genuine affection, they likely wouldn't find happiness. Well, you have so many other important matters to attend to. Please don't worry about this anymore. Fu Jian was taken aback and he bursted into laughter. Feelings can be cultivated, even if they're not initially present, he said. What an interesting answer. Very well then, go on. Relief swept over Chen Xing, as if he's been granted an amnesty. And he beat a hasty retreat. Suddenly, he remembered Toba Yan and began to feel awkward, but glanced around and told him that Toba Yan was just not at the door anymore. Only Shangshu was waiting for him. Chen Xing was following Shangshu out, his heart heavy, when suddenly Shangshu turned around. Chen Xing jumped back, still on guard from how Shangshu had hit him before, and watched him vigilantly, ready to flee at any moment. Seeing Chen Xing's guarded reaction, Shangshu didn't approach further. I've thought it through, he said. You didn't lie to me. You are indeed an exorcist. That day on Longzhong Mountain, you used mana. You've had your fill, hitting and scolding me, and now that you've snapped out of it, you're here to apologize? Do you think an apology erases everything? He thought. Oh, said Chen Xing, so what? But you shouldn't have gone to the Songbai residence last night, Shangshu continued icily. Jiantou had known about their secret for a long time. He's been waiting to gather enough evidence before he takes action to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. So Fu Jian knew of the Feng family's plot to assassinate him, and was just biding his time. On one hand, Fu Jian had always been confident in his own power, viewing rebels as little more than clowns. On the other hand, since the rebels had not taken action yet, he wanted to avoid being seen as the Han, tyrant who slaughtered people unjustly. He needed to at least find some charges to justify executing the entire family. How could I have known? Chen Xing retorted. I was only searching for the ruins of that exorcist headquarters. I had no idea I'd find the hiding out of the Songbai residence discussing something like that. Shangshu glanced around and finding their surroundings empty, sat down in the corridor, hugging one knee to his chest. He seemed to be in deep thought. Chen Xing hated Shangshu to the core of his being, but seeing him soften his feelings, the early spring sunshine casted a gentle glow on him, highlighting his striking appearance, a true treat for the eyes. Even dressed in the attire of an assassin, he was dangerous but magnetic. Chen Xing was forced to vent his frustration on the tree in the garden. He snapped off the branch and whipped the bushes a few times, imagining that it was Shangshu. In the end, he said, they wanted to help me kill to kill that person, and I refused. If I intended to act, I would have done it today. Why would I wait for you to come find me? He surmised that after waiting for Chen Xing for a while and not seeing him return, Shangshu must have been concerned that something had happened and rushed over to check on him. Reflecting on it, Shangshu's behavior towards him was peculiar. He'd assaulted Chen Xing on one occasion, then showed concern for his safety in another. This was evident last night as well. If Shangshu hadn't been worried about Chen Xing's encountering danger, he would have never ventured so recklessly into the Songbai residence. Chen Xing recounted the events of the previous day, watching Shangshu as he spoke. Shangshu would doubtless be tight-lipped about this, and he wasn't particularly talkative to begin with. For some reason, Chen Xing always felt comfortable sharing what he knew with Shang Shu. Is there a lead on the person who tried to kill you? Shang Shu asked. No. Could they have been sent by the Feng family? Impossible. Why? Once they realized they couldn't persuade me, they might have decided to silence me. Because the Feng family knows that I took you away, so they wouldn't have acted that night. They know it only would cause trouble for them. Then who could it be? Chen Xing mused. Upon careful consideration, he realized it couldn't be Feng Qianyi after all, because the shadow assassin was obviously some kind of Yao. Feng Qianyi couldn't activate his family's heirloom saber, so there was no way he could have had the ability to control such a Yao. Chen Xing and Shang Shu exchanged glances, communicating as if the power of the heart lamp allowed them to understand each other's thoughts. The only possibility was the mysterious group that had already targeted them. They're in Chang'an City, Chen Xing murmured. Isn't that obvious? Said Shang Shu. You were too rash. Chen Xing shrugged. Look, before I descended the mountain, I had no idea there would be a group of people scheming in the shadows to do all of this, or that they'd want to conquer the divine land. And it's not like you tried to stop me when I mentioned I was an exorcist, Lord Protector. I'm not a protector, Shang Shu said disdainfully. I just want to uncover the truth. Okay, then let's take a step back. What's the use of acting like Zhuge Liang in hindsight? Chen Xing scrutinized Shang Shu and curiously finally asked, why is it so important to you to uncover the secrets of the drought fiends? Shang Shu responded with silence. And that is the end of this chapter. Chapter 17. This is a fated arrangement, Chen Xing said. It's not up to you whether you want to be a protector or not. See, this strange combination of circumstances dictates that you're destined to investigate this matter with me. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to hit me again? The moment Shang Shu stood up, Chen Xing backed away, thinking about how even rabbits would bite even when they felt threatened. Yet Shang Shu didn't threaten him at all. He merely walked up to Chen Xing and cast a sidelong look at him. I hate being deceived more than anything, Shang Shu breathed. Do not deceive me, and you'll be able to keep your life. When he heard Shang Shu's imperious tone, a serious problem occurred to Chen Xing, one that he overlooked. Shang Shu was the great Chan Yu, which meant he was the king beyond the Great Wall, and theoretically on equal footing with the Central Plains overlord Fu Jian. Perhaps it was a habit formed while they were on the move, but Chen Xing had never treated Shang Shu as the great Chang Yu. He didn't watch his words in front of him the way he did with Fu Jian. Now that he thought about it, this guy was a man of his words. However, that didn't stop Chen Xing from trying to gain an advantage using words. If you hit me again, he said bitterly, once I get my mana back, I will take revenge and kill you. As he spoke, he backed up a little. If Shang Shu tried to hit him, he decided he'd start yelling and run back to the imperial study to beg Fu Jian for help. I'll wait, was Shang Shu's only reply. He waited for Chen Xing to catch up, frowning. You're still not coming? Chen Xing felt doubtful for a moment, but then he snapped out of it. Shang Shu wanted to investigate this matter related to the exorcism department. He would follow along but maintain a certain distance. Shang Shu turned out of the garden and arrived in front of the palace hall. The guards by the door announced to the person inside, the great Chanyu had arrived. It was Princess Qinghe's sleeping chamber. Inside, Princess Qinghe was seated in an indolent manner, with several reserved elegance of Xianbei girls at her side, likely the daughters of aristocratic Xianbei families. When they saw Shang Shu, the girls laughed and stood up to greet him. Great Chanyu! Don't go harboring any hopes now, Princess Qinghe told them, smiling enigmatically. All of you sit down. The great Chanyu likes men. Shang Shu didn't respond to that statement. Chen Xing casted a skeptical glance at him. Oh, really? Is that true? Has no one heard about the marriage proposals the other day? Princess Chinghe asked the girls on either of her side. Shangshu took a deep breath. Getting into this with Princess Chinghe would only make matters worse. Where is he? He asked. I've already called him over. Princess Chinghe said, Great Chanyu, sit down and drink some tea. Tianchi, serve your Great Chanyu for a while. Chenxing had no choice but to comply. Tianchi? Yes. Chenxing asked. He had a strong sense that this gang of Hu people liked to joke around and that they would tease him just because they had nothing better to do. He was wary of Princess Chinghe, and he didn't know if Shangshu had come to ask her to help finding someone or assist in their investigation. Smiling, Princess Chinghe said, Have you agreed to the marriage proposed by His Majesty? I have not. Oh? Why not? Please pardon me. We Xianbei people have always been direct. The other girls laughed and stared at Chenxing. There are no feelings between us, he replied. But feelings can be nurtured, can they not? We'd still have to wait until they've been nurtured before anyone mentions marriage. Chenxing was now relatively calm about the idea of marriage between two men. He had to find other excuses to shut up this bunch of Hu people who disregarded laws and morality and liked to tear traditions to shreds. One of the girls smiled at Chinghe. He already has someone so yanga. Shouldn't hold on to too much hope. If it were me, I would definitely marry the Great Chanyu. She spoke in a Xianbei language, which Chenxing had learned from Yu Wenxin. But this sort of situation, it was better to pretend that he didn't understand. He stopped himself from looking to see how Shangshu reacted to this. He can marry both, replied Princess Xinghe, also in the Xianbei language. If he's able to fill Wang Meng's position, he could marry the Great Chanyu first, then marry Yan Er. Chenxing was speechless. Shangshu, finally unwilling to listen any further, said, Enough. Someone outside then said. Chenxing heard a familiar voice. The guard announced, The Commoner Fang Qianzhen would like to pay his respects to Your Royal Highness Princess Chinghe. Chenxing whirled around, but Shangshu only shot a brief glance at the door. Fang Qianzhen was standing outside the threshold, afraid to come in. He bowed slightly, then stood with his hands tucked into his sleeves. Chenxing almost couldn't recognize him. Fang Qianzhen had changed his clothes from his usual Jianghu style. He had left his saber behind and was wearing a pitch-black cage crown. He had even trimmed his eyebrows. With the complexion as fair as polished jade, he appeared quite stately. Chenxing almost called out, Fang Daga, but at the look of Shangshu, stopped him. The Great Chanyu's looking for you, Princess Chinghe said with a casual laugh. Come in. Shangshu got up. Let's talk somewhere else. We'll leave now. Princess Chinghe didn't stop them. His Majesty will be waiting for you to dine with him tonight, she said. Come back early. Hearing this, Shangshu knew that there would be trouble. Ever since he had entered the palace, Fu Jian had let him rest and refrain from mentioning the purple scroll of golden conferment, so Shangshu also didn't bring it up. He presumed Fu Jian couldn't hold back any longer and intended to finally ask for the scroll. Chenxing and Shangshu got up to leave. Feng Qianzhen looked up again and casted a glance towards the hall. Chenxing was surprised to see a little loneliness in his eyes. Feng Daga? He whispered. Feng Qianzhen nodded and left the palace with Chenxing and Shangshu. At first, the three of them said nothing. Chenxing thought about things, scrutinizing Shangshu. He couldn't guess his motives, and he even found it stranger that Feng Qianzhen knew the princess Chenghe. He was harboring many suspicions when he followed Shangshu and Feng Qianzhen to a deserted place outside the palace, where the carriage awaited them. I heard about what happened last night, Feng Qianzhen said. Once I'd heard that the two of you were all right, I intended to have someone enter the palace today and make some inquiries, but Great Chanyu summoned me first. Chenxing looked at him, then at Shangshu, whose expressions remained inscrutable. Feng Daga, do you know that Princess Chinghe? In addition to operating banks, the Feng family supplies rarities to the royal family. When I came to Chang'an 7 years ago, I got to know her by chance. You're the one who asked me to come, so please forgive me for speaking bluntly. Shangshu interrupted him. I apologize for not being able to save your family's coachman last night. Hearing that someone of Shangshu's lofty status cared about the life and death of a coachman changed Chenxing's opinion of him slightly, but Feng Qianjun quickly waved this away. The coachman had already received a generous burial, and his family has been offered a lot of money as compensation. No one wanted something like this to happen. He gestured, "Let's talk in the carriage. Shall we go to the Songbai residence?" "This carriage is too small," Chenxing remarked. "I didn't think that you would both be here. We'll just have to squeeze a little and make do with this." Feng Qianjun's carriage was extremely narrow. They squeezed in, but Shangshu and Feng Qianjun had long legs, and it was so cramped that they couldn't move. Shangshu's lips and nose were pressed into Chenxing's cheek, and Feng Qianjun's arm was digging into Chenxing's waist. Chenxing was forced to half-sit on both Shangshu and Feng Qianjun, with both of them contributing a thigh. "Why am I sitting in the middle?" Chenxing demanded, feeling a bit petulant. "Don't tell me you want the great Chanyu to sit on my lap," said Feng Qianjun. Shangshu had nothing to say. "This is strange," said Chenxing. "Don't you usually ride horseback? Why are you taking the carriage today?" "Because I don't want to mess up my hair," Feng Qianjun replied. "Why?" "Don't ask, it's upsetting." The carriage passed through the North Road, the peaceful main road, and wobbled along the street, with Shangshu and Chenxing had returned last night. "Who on earth ambushed the two of you last night?" Feng Qianjun asked, "and how many of them were there?" "We have very limited information and only know you two were involved." "I don't know," Shangshu replied dispassionately. Slightly muffled by Chenxing's face, "It was just one person. When the guards on patrol arrived, only the corpse of my coachman remained. Why didn't you keep fighting and wait for a reinforcement?" Feng Qianjun knew that someone of Shangshu's status wouldn't kill a coachman, and he was almost certain that the two of them had been attacked after they left the Songbai residence. "Wait for the guards?" Shangshu asked, his tone unchanged. "And let them die in the street too?" "Oh, so that's it," Chenxing thought. "He fled last night because he didn't want the guards on patrol to be killed." Feng Qianjun shot Chenxing a puzzled look. Chenxing thought for a moment, then decided to explain. "Our attacker was a Yao." "Another Yao? Why do Yao show up everywhere you go?" "You think I want to keep on running into them?" Chenxing said helplessly. "Don't confuse cause and effect." "This isn't why I summoned you to the palace," said Shangshu. "Go open the last underground storeroom door." Chenxing was astonished. He had mentioned this to Shangshu that morning, and here Shangshu was now making the demands of Feng Qianjun. "No way," Feng Qianjun said. "I don't have the right to enter. I couldn't if I wanted to." "Fine, stop the carriage." "What are you going to do?" Chenxing asked. He could already imagine Shangshu storming in single-handedly, stabbing Feng Qianyi to death, and slaughtering everyone in the Songbai residence. "In that case," Shangshu said, "there's no need for the Song residence to exist." Feng Qianjun looked gobsmacked. They squeezed tight in the small carriage Shangshu made to get up, but Chenxing quickly shifted his weight and pressed him down, sitting on his lap. Chenxing tried to smooth things over. "Let's talk it out peacefully." "A fatal disaster will befall the Feng family soon," Shangshu said. "Yet they remain conceited and utterly lacking self-awareness. They'll die sooner or later, so why shouldn't I send the whole family on their way down now?" Feng Qianjun took a deep breath, and still in a state of shock. Chenxing, for his part, was scared witless. Shangshu had said it straight out just like that. It was silent inside the carriage for a moment. Some words lodged in Feng Qianjun's throat, and he couldn't get them out. Finally, with a bit of frustration, he said, "I've tried to persuade my daga more than once." "That has nothing to do with me," Shangshu said. "Open the storeroom door." "And if I don't?" Feng Qianjun said stiffly. Then tonight I will mobilize the imperial guards to banish the Feng family from Chang'an. I've tolerated you for a very long time, Feng Qianzhen." Don't, Chen Xing said. "Don't fight. If there's nothing else, we're friends who have gone through the hardships of living in the wild together. Feng Daga, I really need. Could you help me think of something? In your case, the saber of harmony and life." Chen Xing glanced at the saber Feng Qianzhen carried around with him, the meaning behind the word self-evident. Once the mana of the world was restored, the harmony saber would become a magical artifact, and it would be in Feng Qianzhen's possession. It could at the very least stop Feng Qianzhen's older brother, Feng Qianyi, and even if it couldn't, he would be able to use it for self-defense. Feng Qianzhen fell thoughtfully silent, having received Chen Xing's hint. Chen Xing knew that Xiangshu was not joking, and that if he requested a search of the Songbai residence from Toba Yan, he could get it very easily. Still, it would require a bit more work to explain to Fu Jian. Xiangshu was a high status and immense authority. He was showing Feng Qianzhen a lot of consideration by giving this warning in advance. If Feng family had taken their plans to further and had been searched by the imperial guards, things could easily have been explained away. Now though, with Feng Qianzhen's older brother up to no good, they were culpable. If they took one wrong step, they might find themselves buried in unmarked graves. My daga will absolutely not agree, Feng Qianzhen said finally, but okay, I'll come up with another way. I'll do it for the sake of this family heirloom, the Harmony Saber. Hopefully after mana is restored to this world, I'll be able to convince my daga and make him understand our responsibilities as members of the Feng family. Feng Qianzhen invited Chen Xing and Xiangshu into the Songbai residence at noon. He left them briefly and then returned and explained. After lunch every day, the main teller takes an afternoon nap. I'll fetch the keys to the storeroom then. Xiangshu, looking just as he always did, ate lunch with Chen Xing in the Songbai residence. Feng Qianzhen watched him, smiling. Interesting. You're not afraid of me poisoning the food? Do you have anything to gain from poisoning it? Chen Xing asked. I'm not afraid of poison, said Xiangshu. There was nothing Feng Qianzhen could say to that. Chen Xing shot Xiangshu a surprised look, thinking, you're immune to poison? That constitution of yours is really strange. After some contemplation, Feng Qianzhen said, after his wife passed away, Daga changed a lot. He has been hell-bent on revenge for her and my two nephews. That has nothing to do with me, said Xiangshu. Plotting a rebellion is one of the 10 abominations. All the sins can be forgiven except for these 10 abominations. I can try to advise Daga, but if he doesn't listen to my advice, what else can I do? Xiangshu didn't respond, but Chen Xing was troubled. He wanted to explain things to Feng Qianzhen. He had been consistently tight-lipped regarding the Feng brothers' rebellion plot, so if he said too much, it would make it seem like he was trying to hide something. I just don't understand who leaked the news, Feng Qianzhen said at last. Not me. Chen Xing said hurriedly. I didn't say anything. Feng Qianzhen was deep in thought again. It was late in the morning when he finally got up, his movements soft, quiet, gesturing for the other two to wait a moment while he fetched the keys. He walked barefoot through the corridor and reached the main teller's room. A moment later, he successfully retrieved the keys. There's only 3 keys, Feng Qianzhen said, showing them to Chen Xing. Chen Xing accepted them. I'm just going to take a look. I promise I won't touch your family's things, and I'll return everything to its original place before I leave. Feng Qianzhen left to send the storeroom guards away, and Xiangshu and Chen Xing waited off to the side until everyone was gone. Then Chen Xing opened the storeroom door with the key, but it swung shut seamlessly behind him. When the doors closed, the light vanished. Inside the pitch-dark storeroom, Chen Xing emitted a warm white light from his hands. Xiangshu followed behind him, with his hands in his sleeves. They went down the stairs and once again, past the copper and silver storerooms, before they entered where the gold was kept. This place is where general administration of the exorcism department was located 300 years ago. During the Han Dynasty, Chengxing explained as Shangshu looked around. We are currently standing in the main hall. Have there ever been records in the exorcism department of the revival of drought fiends? I don't know. Rumor has it, in the few years after the exorcism department disbanded, many ancient records were scattered throughout the world. Shifu had gathered some in Mount Hua, but there are many more that we don't know their whereabouts of. Why do you care about drought fiends so much? Again, Shangshu did not answer his question. They reached the final secret door. They had finally used all the keys, and now only one combination lock remained, situated in the middle of the doors. This is what I call the Wheel of Lu Ban. Chengxing pondered for a moment. I studied it under my Shufu. It uses some kind of mechanism. When Feng Qianyi brought me here last night, he thought that I knew nothing about it, but in fact, as long as I can hear the sound, I can work on the trick to unlocking the heavenly stems and earthly branches that are embedded within. There are a lot of boxes at my Shufu's place that uses this kind of compass. Enough talking. Shangshu put his hand on the back of Chengxing's neck and pushed him to stand before the compass, rendering Chengxing speechless. Unlock it. For a moment, nothing could be heard in the room except for the sounds of the compass rotating. Chengxing recalled the sound of Feng Qianyi turning it and tried to match it in the position of the heavenly stems and earthly branches engraved on the compass. Shangshu? Chengxing asked. The white light in his hand only lit up a small area of the compass. Both of them were hidden in the dark. When Shangshu didn't tell him to shut his mouth, he continued. You're obviously called Shu Lu Kong. Why did you say that your family is named Xiang? Why are you called Shangshu and not Shang Kong? And what business is this of yours? Shangshu asked indifferently. It was just that there were a lot of mysteries surrounding Shangshu. For example, why was he so preoccupied with these drought fiends when he had long posed this question to Shangshu when they reunited in Longzhong Mountain? Shangshu had claimed he was just meddling in other people's businesses. From what had happened afterwards, though, that didn't seem to be true. Even his reasons for investigating the village that was massacred by the drought fiends didn't seem very plausible. Chengxing stopped moving. Continue, Shangshu said, but Chengxing straightened in place, pondering something. Wait, Shangshu, he said after a moment, I have one condition. You dare negotiate conditions with me? Shangshu clamped his fingers down on Chengxing's shoulders, and half of Chengxing's body went sore and limp. That's not what I meant. Let me go. Just listen to me. I feel resentment behind this door. Chengxing was almost certain now, what he had previously felt the last time. When he entered the bottom of the storeroom was not an illusion. There really was something there. I think there's some kind of seal here. I don't know what it has to do with Feng Qianyi, but it is likely affecting him somehow. Just cut the crap and get to the point. The secret underground storeroom in the headquarters of the exorcism department. Don't touch me, just let me finish. It might have a seal, which can't be dealt with through combat. All right, Shangshu said, I'm listening. I'm not sure how to deal with it, but you need to serve as my protector. Most importantly, you have to ensure my safety. You must wholeheartedly and unreservedly believe in me and listen to me in order for us to deal with this danger. Don't you always boast about your good luck? Shangshu asked in a mocking tone. I really don't know what I did to provoke you. What bone do you have to pick with me? You didn't provoke me, and I have no bone to pick with you. Let's discuss this like adults then. It's so difficult for you to be my protector for a little while. The power that can be drawn from the heart lamp could be much greater than before. If you're willing, you saw its effects on Longzhong Mountain. According to the records, magic can only be utilized to its utmost when exorcists and their protectors entrust their lives to each other. You're trying to coerce me with all this nonsense? Shangshu scoffed. Just open the door. Of course not. I'm afraid that there will be something difficult to deal with inside. Shangshu fell silent for a long time. When Chenxing turned to look at him, Shangshu said, "Okay." "Woof woof." "Ah." Chenxing yelped, startled by a sudden bark. He turned around to see Feng Qianjun carrying a small dog. Why are you guys here?" "It smelled your scent on me, so it followed me all the way here," said Feng Qianjun. It was the dog that Chenxing had picked up on the road and entrusted to Feng Qianjun when they arrived in Chang'an. It had been a few days since they'd last seen each other, and the dog was wagging its tail at Chenxing. Chenxing took it from Feng Qianjun and stroked its head. He had gotten such a fright that the heart had almost leaped out of his throat. "Feng Daga, when did you arrive?" "Around the time you asked Great Chanyu to wholeheartedly and unreservedly listen to you." Obviously, Shangshu had known Feng Qianjun was there. Feng Qianjun's footsteps were soft, but he couldn't hide from an expert like Shangshu. "I've already opened the door," Chenxing said. "I'll open it now." He took a deep breath and returned to the compass to its original position. A clicking sound came from within and the door was unlocked. Then he stepped forward to push the door. It didn't budge an inch. Chenxing was confused. It must have been closed for too long. He turned sideways and leaned against the stone door with his shoulder, then pushed it with all his might. "I think it's jammed from the inside." His feet slipped on the ground. "Protector, give me a hand." Shangshu lifted Chenxing up by the collar and moved him aside, then extended his forefinger and middle finger, hooked an opening beside the compass and pulled it to one side. With a loud rumble, the door slid to the left. "Oh," Chenxing said. "It's a sliding door." The space behind it was pitch black. Chenxing raised his hands and the light of the heart lamp filled the room, illuminating its depths. It was dark, narrow, and only 11 square yards, so when the heart lamp lit up, everything inside could be seen at a glance. The puppy became fearful when the door opened, and it turned its tail and ran. Stepping inside, Chenxing cried out when he saw that a shelf on the left side of the room was filled with a mess of broken bamboo slips. There were dozens of small boxes piled up on the right, and a locked iron cabinet stood in the middle of the room. "It's been buried underground for too long," Chenxing murmured. He reached out to remove the bamboo slip from the shelf as he spoke, his eyebrows furrowed. The storeroom could barely accommodate all three men. Whenever they turned or moved, they bumped into each other. Feng Qianjun looked up and inspected their surroundings. "These must be the relics dug up from the ground when we constructed the storeroom." "Can you read it?" Shangshu asked Chenxing. Chenxing regretfully handed the bamboo slip to Shangshu. 300 years had passed, and after such a long time buried in the ground, suffering erosion from running water, these slips were covered in sand and mud. What had once been written on them could no longer be read. "I was so close," Chenxing said helplessly. "I was just one step away. Damn it." "Are you sure that if the writing could be made out of, you'd been able to find what you want?" Shangshu asked. He grasped Chenxing's wrist with one hand and lifted it slightly, using him as a lamp to illuminate the bamboo slips in his hands. "At the very least, I'd be able to find some clues." Feng Qianjun opened a box. "Take a look at this." Inside, the large lump of hard-shelled items were stuck together. Feng Qianjun broke off a piece. It was paper. When paper was soaked in water, its paste clumped together, and hardened masses like this were the result when it eventually dried up. Chenxing struggled a few times to get Shangshu to let go of his wrist. Shangshu threw the bamboo slip aside and began scrutinizing the empty scabbard. "What's written on this?" he asked. Chenxing recognized the ancient characters written in seal script on the scabbard. "The fetters of samsara bind unyielding. May they be severed by the sword of wisdom." He turned to the heavy iron cabinet with the black iron lock that stood in the center of the room. "Let's open that and take a look." He couldn't shake the feeling that there was something unusual here. Feng Qianjun motioned for the other two to move, just as he was about to draw his sword, though Shangshu hooked a finger in the lock, and with a single twist, the piece of iron that connected the lock to the door of the cabinet came off. Before Chen Xing could illuminate the iron cabinet, Shangshu stepped in front of him, holding the scabbard with his left hand in a defensive position. He pulled the cabinet door open with his right. There was a palm-sized dressing mirror inside the cabinet. Everything else was made of jade. Chains carved out of white jade were wrapped around the dressing mirror, and the moment the cabinet doors opened, dark fog started pervading the air. Jade was used to exorcise evil spirits. This is resentment. Acting decisively, Chen Xing shouted, "Close that cabinet door!" But his cries came out too late. The black fog within blasted out and swept across the entire storage room, wrapping around the three of them. "Get back!" shouted Shangshu. Chen Xing felt a powerful force drag him in, pulling him ferociously towards the mirror. He had barely managed to turn around when he found himself wrapped in a whirlwind and was pulled to the air. Shangshu pushed hard from behind, trying to close that cabinet door, and the scabbard left his hands and was sucked into the mirror. The iron cabinet shook madly and kept rumbling, looking like the enormous mouth of a monster as it began to devour everything around it. Chen Xing clung to the edge of the storage room door with one hand and gripped Shangshu with the other. "Let go!" Shangshu shouted. "Don't worry about me." Chen Xing looked back at him. "What did I say before we came in?" "Find a way to kick the cabinet door shut," yelled Feng Qianzhen, but Chen Xing couldn't hold on any longer. A sharp pain shot through his fingers, jolting his grip loose, and he was swept up away by the whirlwind. Shangshu immediately wrapped an arm around Chen Xing's waist to hold him tight. In the next moment, the two of them were sucked into the mirror. "Guards!" shouted Feng Qianzhen. "Help! Chen Xing!" With one hand, he jammed his saber into the side of the door and looked back at the strange mirror. When he turned to look forward again, his pupils dilated. Gazing back at him from the other side of the dark room was none other than his older brother, Feng Qianyi. He leaned back in his wheelchair, holding a lamp in his hands, wearing a mask that only covered his eyes. He made a strange expression, giving Feng Qianzhen a smile that didn't seem like a smile, and shook his head helplessly. Unwittingly, Feng Qianzhen loosened his grip. The next moment, he and his saber were also swept away into the mirror by the dark storm. And that is the end of this chapter. This is where I'll leave you guys thoughts on what will happen soon. I have a feeling he was that guy in the grave, right? Like he's wearing this eerie clothing and he probably assassinated them. He has like some Yao energy. That's what I'm thinking, and everything is probably going to be connected. All of the voodoo bad stuff is probably from this mirror. There's probably a curse or some type of spell on it, and yeah, Feng Qianyi seems to be the mastermind, but we'll see how deep this conspiracy grows in the next part. So I'll see you guys then. Thanks for watching or listening. Hope you guys liked it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. on a horse.